Coming up.
Even I didn't know that you were the one that gave Beanie Man the moniker the Doctor.
Yeah, I suppose the lesson is don't judge a book by the cover. You know, the people who hear about Broadcasting Commission and believe it's it's a set of elitists, lawyers who don't know anything about entertainment, hate dancehall artists, don't go to concerts, don't know anything about the music, don't love the music. That is so far from the truth. Again, a lot of noise in a fight against poor people, ghetto people. Of course, I come from Glendevon in Montego Bay. So when people are talking about ghetto people again, you see, they see people and they see them as lawyer and all kinds of things happen in their imagination that these people don't, their reality different from my reality.
Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica and attorney at law, Cordel Green is our guest this week on the Trailblazers. Join in the conversation.
I said, let me tell you something. If you live long enough, you're going to see some 70-year-old people sitting down saying, back in the days, Killibang was good music. I don't know what these young people are singing these days.
Stay tuned.
The most prominent producer then in the industry tell Tony that he could not bust a female artist because
Failing is one thing. Failing publicly is a very hard thing.
I said I was holding my mouth, the lies were going, and I sat and I saw women on the TV just lying bluntly, just like that.
Released the all media survey. When you look at the name Ron Mushet, 0, 0, 0.
I had to fend for myself at an early age. In fact, my mother became mentally ill when I was 9 years old.
I sold everything and went to my wife and said, and she said to me, all right, no problem. She will back me. Just leave the house.
From entertainers, politicians, business leaders, and more, the Trailblazers with Tamara McKayle on YouTube has it all.
That I'm new to that.
I did movies with Denzel Washington. Then I wrote Babs, and that's starring Halle Berry.
You wrote Babs?
I wrote Babs,
Oh no!
Subscribe now for a brand new year of inspiration and strategies to make it from the best of the best. Plus catch up on episodes you may have missed. It's the Trailblazers with Tamara McKayle on YouTube.
This week on the Trailblazers, I am so delighted to have the Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, Cordel Green. He's a man with many titles currently and before. He's a former Assistant Attorney General of Jamaica, former broadcaster, he currently also is attorney at law and so much more. And he's a name that many Jamaicans know, either for good and sometimes they're upset with him as well.
I hope I'm not on the police most wanted list or anything
like
that.
Not on
okay,
that.
very good.
He's not on the most wanted list, and it's a pleasure. I actually ran into Cordel in recent times while I was in Las Vegas at the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters show, and I'm so delighted that he agreed to be on the Trailblazers. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green. So as I was saying in the preamble, because to have such an esteemed guest as you, there is so much that I want to to discuss and to dissect with you. But one of the things before we go into some of those topics and some of those areas, especially like trends in media, of obviously like artificial intelligence, I want to first zoom in a bit on your own journey and your personal story. Because I had a look at your profile and kid you not, I don't know if it's the generational gap, but I didn't know that you did all of those things. In fact, while I know you're a very accomplished man, but even I didn't know that you were the one that gave Beanie Man the moniker the Doctor.
Yeah. There's that side. I suppose the lesson is don't judge a book by the cover. The people who hear about Broadcasting Commission and believe it's a set of elitists, lawyers who don't know anything about entertainment, hate dancehall artists, don't go to concerts, don't know anything about the music, don't love the music. That is so far from the truth. I grew up as a matter of fact, I spent a lot of time in the early evolution. Well, let's put it this way: in the dancehall of the 80s and dancehall of the 90s, very, very much immersed in it. Even as a high school student, having a very rare opportunity that people of my age and anybody who is from Western Jamaica would know about. Just about anybody you talk to who is from anywhere in the West, in a certain age group, will know of what was the leading entertainment complex in the Caribbean called Disco Inferno. And I, in 10th, 11th grade in high school, was an executive at Disco Inferno, organizing the biggest reggae concerts in Western Jamaica and emceeing them as well, and was the exclusive voice for Disco Inferno commercial. So when I got to university and was doing things like Chancellor Hall's Spectrum and introducing people like Beanie Man and so on stage, that was like par for the course. I was emceeing Sunsplash, later Sumfest. This was just me coming up from Montego Bay, going into university and continuing to do something that I'd been doing since about 8th grade in high school, emceeing concerts.
Wow.
So it's the farthest thing from the truth that there's no love for dancehall. Back in the day, we had a radio station called JBC. We still have RJR, and many of the stations, some of the stations we're hearing now, such as Mellow FM that comes out of Montego Bay, the antecedents would be JBC, which was kind of splintered off. So I was on the JBC Radio West, from which we got Hot 102 and now Mellow FM. And I was running a very popular music show on that station in 10th grade in high school. A lot of what I was playing, well, I have a preference, I have to tell you, for what we would call cultural music. But I did play a lot of dancehall music. And I left JBC Radio West, came to Kingston when the broadcaster Free Eye was murdered along with Peter Tosh. He was then hosting the leading afternoon program on JBC, and he got murdered, and Barry G was off radio at the time. He had been suspended from JBC. So I was brought up from Montego Bay to take over the 2 to 6 super mix, replacing Free Eye on national radio. You can't be on national radio and not play dancehall. But I have to admit that I was very, very scrupulous. I did not play extreme dancehall music, and because it's not appropriate for free-to-air radio. So there is some consistency in the argument. It has nothing to do with artists, has nothing to do with the genre. It has to do with appropriate places and spaces. We can love some dancehall music. We don't expect to hear it at church on a Sunday morning. We don't expect to play it for our children and grandparents. We may play it in our bedrooms. Some dancehall tracks were created for that space, not for our broadcast, let us say, on radio. That's a debate.
And even before we go into that, or go further, I would say, into even the debate aspect, because I'm more fascinated with even your own journey from such a young age, because I did realize that you attended the Herbert Morrison High School, which is known to produce a lot of musical great in entertainment and also in broadcasting in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And so you sort of already had that foundation where you were able to hone your skills from such an early age. So as naturally as you mentioned, by the time you came to Kingston, this was just another step up the ladder for you, because
you've hit the nail on the head. I was actually one of the, I wasn't in the batch, the first batch of students to go to Herbert Morrison, because that school, it's now arguably the leading high school in that part of the country, or certainly in the top 3. But back in the day, it was a new school. It didn't have a track record. Those of us who went there had to lay the foundation. The best thing we had was the principal, who was a master coming over from Cornwall College, which was then the top boys' school. So at least we started with a solid reputation in a principal. But who the students would be and what types of students we would produce, and all of this accomplishment in the arts and academics and in sports, that's something that had to be cultivated. So you're right. I represented the school from 7th grade in JCDC speech and drama. As a matter of fact, that is how I became MC. I entered speech, won gold medals and national awards. And at the time, they would take all the people who win gold medals and take them around different places in St. James and have them perform. I would turn up at this thing performing my gold medal speech, right?
Yeah.
Two. One would be some kind of dialect, like Miss
Jamaican dialect.
And another one would
Standard English.
Be exactly.
Yeah, it's because I did ACDC in school, so I know as well.
Look, I tell you, I kid you, I tell people all the time, if you see a solid Jamaican, and I count myself in that category, if you see a Jamaican who you say, all right, I'm happy with that Jamaican, okay? That Jamaican, in terms of being a citizen, is real. Chances are, I'm telling you, if you check their background, they have done something in JCDC, if not JCDC, speech, dance, drama, Cub Scout, Girls Guide, or something like that. So I would go on these concerts. The MC for the concert was the lead singer for the band. One day we are to have the concert and they're panicking. This lead singer met in an accident and couldn't come. So I heard the organizers of this concert, incidentally, the former Governor General, His Excellency Howard Cook, his niece, Janet Cook, was the lead organizer. And she was in a panic about, oh my God, we can't start. We don't have a MC. And I'm there as a child hearing this conversation. And I said to them, well, I can do it. What the man does is he goes up there and he says, and I repeated what he said, I can do it until you find somebody else. So it didn't occur to them to ask me to do it. Yeah. But then they agreed, okay, let him go up there and start the show. Well, I emceed the show. The next show, they told the leader for the band, no, come and sing. We don't bother want you as the MC. So I became.
You took the man's job.
I became the MC. And I'm telling you, anything you connect with entertainment, the stage, broadcasting, public speaking goes back to primary and high school JCDC speech and drama competition.
Mr. Cordel Green, you are so right. I'm enjoying the conversation already because, as you mentioned, I identify with everything that you just said. Literally, it could be my story, except you're not me. But definitely,
there are many of us. There are many of us.
Exactly.
Many.
I did JCDC in school as well. Did standard English and Jamaican dialect. Perform, won medals. The whole thing, public speaking and so forth. But it just
you know how I got into it. I was in primary school. In Cub Scout, I was doing everything except the creative. I knew nothing about creative arts. I don't have anybody in my family doing these things. And one Friday, I was walking past a classroom and saw a boy in there reciting a poem, The Idiot. And I just kind of heard him talking about the idiot. And I didn't realize that it was actually a club that what I thought this boy was just in the classroom with a lot of girls in particular. I did notice that, commanding their attention. I then ran in the classroom and started aping what he was doing and started saying the poem, The Idiot, and did this thing. Then I realized there was a teacher in the classroom. The teacher started coming towards me. I bolted from the classroom, went home, came back to school the Monday. The woman turned up at my class and I said, oh my God, straight to principal office now. She came with a book and said, read this poem, The Idiot. So I started mumbling, The Idiot. And she said, no. Like how you interrupted the class. Do it the same way. So I did it, and the woman said, you have to learn the poem because you're going to festival. I don't know what festival was. All I knew was I wasn't going to the principal's office. This was great. I learned the poem, went to this thing, don't know what it is, read the poem, recite the poem. They announced silver medal. I went to school, became an overnight celebrity. The principal is announcing that I won a silver medal. The school clapped. So I said, but wait, but this thing here, I love it. Next year, gold medal.
Wow.
Every year after that, primary school right up to university. Gold medals, national awards.
Fantastic. And it seems, based on what you have been sharing, you've always had that spirit of excellence. Then we can see that you've always been somebody who is motivated, somebody who is also mature for the age, and somebody who is a go-getter, right? And that carried you even into your university years, because I understand you held so many caps while you were a university student, including being president of the Guild of Students. And for those who are overseas, that essentially is the head then of the student body. He was that person. So tell us about those years for you, and was it that led you into the path of media full-time and also being an attorney as well?
Well, it began in high school. Everything that I was doing in high school was about balance. So I had to balance the school responsibilities, academics. I was, for most of my senior years in high school, a prefect, president of the Students' Council. I was president also of the Region 1 Students' Council at the time, responsible for Trelawney and Hanover and St. James, whilst doing all of these things, including doing a musical radio show. As a matter of fact, in 11th grade, I had a radio show with Lloyd B. Smith, who the member of parliament and well-known journalists. The radio stations manager at the time felt there was need for a youth perspective with an adult perspective on social issues in a comedic context. So we created a program called Hocus and Pocus, which was hilarious and immensely popular. So when I went to University of the West Indies, I was already steeped in student leadership and entertainment and broadcasting, but I did not have my eyes set on being a broadcaster. I had my eyes set on being a lawyer. So contrary to what some people think, I was not a student at Karamak. I read politics and literature. That was my first degree, after which I entered the Faculty of Law. On Chancellor Hall, I lived on campus at Chancellor Hall. I first became Chancellor Hall's Cultural and Entertainment Affairs Chairman, which is how this whole Spectrum concert bit came in. And then in my final year, I was the guild president.
Wow. Interesting. Just hearing your journey, hearing your story, hearing the variations and your growth over the years. So it brings me to your current position, which you have been doing for many years.
Many years, yeah.
Many years as Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica. But at the same time, you've had, I'm sure, ups and downs. I remember as a high schooler, there was a certain program that my friends would love to sneak and listen to. It wasn't necessarily fit for children or high schoolers, but we would listen to it. And very often the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica would come down on that specific program. Even when I started university, sometimes we'd listen to it. And that specific host would often, your name would often be called because they would not be pleased with Cordel Green and what the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica is doing. Because for those who do not know, the Broadcasting Commission is a regulator of electronic media in Jamaica. I'm not sure if it's more than electronic media.
It is electronic media, although, you know, those distinctions are falling away very quickly, but the legislation speaks to radio, television, and cable.
Okay. And tell us about your journey, because you have grown over the years in that position. You have also helped to modernize the Broadcasting Commission. You've played such a pivotal role there. So tell us about your journey.
Well, I really had no sights at all on regulation. Certainly, I didn't even know anything about Broadcasting Commission, to be very frank. I grew up in radio at a time when people didn't really pay attention to the regulators because standards were just imbibed. You just learned from others, and there are certain things you wouldn't do. So I went on to do law, and I was at the Attorney General's chambers. As you mentioned, I moved up the ranks and became an Assistant Attorney General. And throughout the time I was at the AG's chambers, I did maintain my interest in radio. In fact, there's a program on RJR now, Balancing Justice, that is hosted by King's Counsel, Andre Earl. I helped to conceptualize that. I'm the founding host of that program. In fact, Andre Earl KC was my frequent guest. What happened was Broadcasting Commission came. They actually approached me at the Attorney General's chambers, and through a provision in the law that allows the Governor General to appoint a public officer as an officer of the Broadcasting Commission, it was arranged for me to leave the AG's chambers to go there to take over the responsibility of executive director. So I went there, And it was an interesting time because then we started liberalizing in a very strong way the landscape in Jamaica. So already IRA FM was given a license, and then it multiplied, and multiples of cable companies. Flow didn't exist. It then came into the picture. Digicel came into the picture, and the whole thing just expanded. So the commission's responsibilities then increased tremendously. Cable, that had to be managed very much, particularly local channels. There was a time when people were putting on content, mainly entertainment content involving children that was not appropriate. Those things had to be dealt with. We had to streamline ratings and scheduling and advisories and packaging of programs. So, one of the first things I got immersed in was the children's code for programming in about 2003, which then brought into the framework in Jamaica the obligation to evaluate and rate programs. So we started seeing on local television PG and G, and the concept of a watershed that would say, like, your program that you loved, if you're going to deal with certain types of subject matters, you can't be doing that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because as you have demonstrated, there are children whose cognitive abilities and emotional capabilities are not yet ready for certain types of subjects. They will, of course, find it funny. I mean, all children do. You want to do everything adults do. If an adult smokes and throws away a cigarette, there are lots of children picking up the butt and wanting to smoke. There are children who start folding up bits of dry leaves and want to smoke. If you can reach in the cabinet and take a drink, you do it. But you're not encouraged to do these things. And you also know when you're doing it that this is really not meant for me as a child. In the normal society, you have that kind of protection. Well, we were transitioning, and the new people were coming into broadcasting, not necessarily trained in broadcasting, some not respecting the space. It was just for popularity. What is the most appropriate thing to put on the air in a country where the social fabric was already being challenged?
Yes.
We know that many of our children are not getting parental supervision or the appropriate supervision. What is it? What's the purpose then of broadcasting? Is it to normalize the worst in us, or to expose the best in us and to work as an agent of socialization? It is an agent of socialization. So that's the debate. And that debate continues today. We're going to, I keep telling people who talk about skilly bang, and I say, let me tell you something. If you live long enough, you're going to see some 70-year-old people sitting down saying, back in the day, skilly bang was good music. I don't know what these young people are singing these days. It happens with every generation. It happens.
True.
But there is also something. It's a continuum.
Yes.
Every generation you can point to uplifting, inappropriate, motivating content, and you have extreme content. Every generation.
Yes.
This has been going on from Sodom and Gomorrah. So we're not. So I keep telling people, this is not a debate about artists. We don't know what motivates an artist, their demons or their angels. We can't get into that. Art is expression. So you have to take the range of what people create. You cannot start critiquing so much what they create. You have to take what they create, and then you have to ask yourself questions. For what space, forum, place, persons is this art appropriate?
Certainly. And you've made some very salient points, and I've been just enjoying this discussion. I want to go back a bit to your personal journey and story, because again, as a trailblazer in broadcasting, in media, and also in entertainment, and in terms of the regulation of it, the regulatory aspect, you have also played a pivotal role as well, for example, in the digital switch over, for example, on television, as well in Jamaica. So I want to now touch on you personally, Cordel. How do you deal with when, for example, the challenges of your profession as a regulatory body, as you yourself being the executive director, because that is just part of your many roles, right? But for example, whenever you have the news items come out about the Broadcasting Commission and certain regulation, at times there is public backlash. I know for a fact you have experienced that, or you experience backlash even from entertainers and artists. So, for example, you yourself, how do you deal with that?
Well, actually, quite well, and I will tell you why. First of all, because I understand entertainment, and because I am a Jamaican, and because I fully understand waganism, I know that sometimes people chat things, and if you start probing them, they don't believe what you're saying. They think that's what is everybody else says, and so on. What I can tell you is this. You would be surprised some of the people you hear publicly criticizing the Broadcasting Commission, who privately call up and say, boy, a long time this must happen. Okay, and I understand. Yes, I understand that. I do get that. If you're in a certain space, I mean, a man can't go a certain place if him sound like he must support certain things, you know. So sometimes people say what is convenient. I happen not to be one of that type of person. I can't deal with that, but I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that kind of thing. Tamara, I think most times people know what is right, what is wrong. They know what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. You know, before the most recent furor over scamming and so on, there were a whole set of songs called daggering songs that came out of, you know, as certain types of behavior in the dance hall. Some of them athletic, but also dangerous. You know, I mean, a man a run, jump out a tree, land on a woman and dagger, and you know, there were extreme versions of it that wouldn't be appropriate for broadcast. And Broadcasting Commission said those should come off the air. Again, a lot of noise in a fight against poor people, ghetto people. Of course, I come from Glendevon in Montego Bay. So when people are talking about ghetto people, again, you see, they see people and they see them as lawyer, and all kinds of things happen in their imagination that these people don't, their reality different from my reality. I don't understand that in a country like Jamaica, which is predominantly a poor country. I just kind of think people ought to know that the average lawyer, doctor, police, prime minister, pastor, whomever you see, chances are has come from humble beginnings. So we have to get back to this false narrative that we carry on in this country, that some people push about uptown, downtown. Once you get a job and you start to wear a tie, man feel to joke you down because you come from a different place and space and so on. Arrant nonsense. But the point I'm making is when we took off those daggering songs, now I remember on one occasion, a man walked up to me. Man have a scar in him on the side of him face. Very rough looking brethren, right? And my instinct was, oh, here we go now. This is somebody that will come and, yo, you little idiot boy. And the man come and say, yo, brethren, a long time them something if you come off on the radio, and me I say, yo, oh, them something they play up on the radio. So even the roughest, most extreme critic you hear, except for the ones who are truly uninformed, because you have some of those completely uninformed and extreme. They just feel, we make music and if you play, anything can go on in Jamaica. In other words, those are the people who comport with lawlessness. Me drive car how me feel for drive it, play music how me feel for play it, shoot who me want shoot, fight who me want fight, cuss bad word when me want cuss it, smoke when me want smoke, cuss me neighbor. You have to put those people in a special category. I am talking about the average Jamaican.
Yes.
More often than not, on reflection, knows that what we're saying is right, or if in the moment they do not, they come to that position.
Join us next week for part 2 of this very engaging discussion with Cordel Green, Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica and attorney at law. See you soon.
Coming
That is
next
why
week.
this man has left Google and he comes and he's out here saying to us it's not far-fetched to think that people are going to be creating smart machines that will think they're smarter than human beings and think that we are the ones who need to be eradicated because we are just polluting the space. And he has said it. I mean, this is a man who is sitting at the heart of the technology that he knows people are developing, and people are listening.
I'm Tamara McKayle, television and radio presenter, producer, communication specialist, and of course, producer and host of the Trailblazers series. And I'm inviting you to be a part of the Trailblazers family as we continue to grow. So all you have to do is just click that subscribe button. Make sure you click that notification bell so you are alerted as to when we have new episodes, and join our family for weekly inspirational episodes that will not only lift your spirits but give you the tools, the keys, and the strategies that you need so that you can walk in your purpose, blaze your trail, and be all that you have been created to be. Thank you.